Welcome back to the second part of our employer branding episode. In the first episode, we covered some of the basics and misconceptions about employer branding. And today, we really want to dive deeper into executing the employer branding strategy. And we want to give you just some more insights and expert opinions about this topic. So sit back, relax, and let's get started.
So, in creating or enhancing your employer brand, what are challenges that come up? Can you maybe give some examples from your experience where you've worked with companies where it didn't go as smooth as you thought?
Yeah, there's a lot of risks somehow. First of all, in your perfect example now again, you have to have the management buy-in. So, like sometimes we really have requests from HR teams, and then it's like, yeah, we would love to do this topic, but we're not sure if our managing team or managing board or whatsoever is willing to do so. That's tough because this usually doesn't work. So you need to have the management buy-in, because even if you come up with certain things that needs to be improved, if the management team says, no, everything is cool, we don't have time for that, we need to make money, then yeah, that's the first problem. Second problem is a proper budget allocation. Like what we luckily not in our projects, but what I already saw in other projects is like there's so much money used up in analysis and positioning that there's no more money for internal communication or external communication, which is really a pity. So you do a lot of great work, and then you have a concept, and then you put it in your drawer and close the drawer, and that's it. And you can pull it out next year when you have fresh budget. So super important to allocate your budget in a proper way so that you don't run out of cash, because this is the most stupid thing that can happen in such a project. And what is also a potential risk that also kind of happens quite often, that project groups are so excited about the results that they worked out that they directly run to social media and put it on Insta and LinkedIn and whatsoever, but they did not pre-inform their employees. And what happens? It's this typical, no, what they worked out up there in this project, this does not describe my company, how I feel it. So, and then you create kind of a counter mindset, which is also actually not helpful. So there are kind of many risks, but I think with the proper project set up, it's controllable. And maybe also one more thing, what we just do now in several projects, which also really works out very well. You have a project group, which is like kind of the core team for employer branding. And the thing is, not everybody from this project group has to always be 100% on. So for instance, when you take this RACI metrics, like responsible, accountable, consultable, and informable, this is a perfect way to structure project groups, because not every day everybody has to be involved, but maybe a certain group has to be informed regularly and stuff like that. So you can kind of reduce the potential risks in such projects by doing proper project setups. To also have a realistic time management, also in terms of, you also experienced it. You don't just do it in 2 weeks and then it's ready. But like, what's the saying? It's a marathon and not a sprint, basically. And that's what you need to take into account. So I would say if you really start from the scratch, then plan in 4 to 6 months to really have proper and, well worked out concepts and results that you can also then proceed with.
Let me add one more risk that we encountered when we developed our employer brand. So we had all the concept perfectly worked out and we loved it. And it was like a puzzle, all pieces are coming together. And then it really took us a while to really post it online, to really go into the communication and really go out there, because we wanted to do it so perfectly and we didn't want to make any mistakes because we all realized how important it is for us. So
yeah, I totally understand. But I mean, better done than perfect. And I mean, what's this 80-20 rule out there? So better 80% than 100. And I mean, I think what also most of the companies need to keep in mind, there's not such a communication pressure like for example Audi has, or Siemens, or these huge corporates. I mean, as far as I know, you don't have like 20,000 visitors on your career page every day.
Almost.
Yeah, almost. But, so
Yeah,
it's also
yeah.
perfectly fine to do it step by step and, to bring everything live in a rational way and not everything overnight and then it has to be perfect. So, yeah.
So what are the key components of a successful employer branding strategy? What should I work on? What should I focus on?
Yeah, I mean, we briefly went through this process. I think what's the most important thing is to think about who is going to be in the project team, who can also be reliable. Then I think what's important is to think about and to also align this with the management. What are our goals? And if you define the goals, then also directly define what are the KPIs. Because I know measuring things is not the most popular hobby of HR teams, basically, but it's super important because, I mean, at one point, you or somebody else from the management team also wants to know, we invested X euros into this. What's our outcome? Do the numbers get any better? And for that, I find it extremely important to define some KPIs. You do like a zero measurement, and then you can tell what's the changes in 3, 6, 9, 12 months. It's also a super important part. Then I think what's important is to define what are you actually talking about, because like, is it a German company that has one location in Germany and that's it? Or is it maybe a German company that has like 6 other additional countries or like locations over there? And then do you directly include also these countries, which makes it more tricky because there you for sure have cultural differences. And what employees in Germany like is not necessarily something that employees in Morocco actually like. So this is also something you need to put into consideration. Naja, and then, as mentioned, have a realistic time frame to realize this project. Have good stakeholder management. Keep your employees updated also in between, because they are interested on also the steps in between. It's not about here we start and you get the next update in 6 months, but no, it's also really important to do a proper stakeholder management and communication. And yeah, as you already said, go out. You don't have to go out with a firework, basically, but also take smaller steps, improve the career page, work on job ads, and so on. And yeah, as soon as all of this is done, don't forget to celebrate. And I mean, also announcing your new employer values. I find this is something that you can also make like a small celebration about, or for instance, connect this with your summer celebration or stuff like that to announce the update. It's such a nice topic. It's not about restructuring and saving money. It's actually about finding out who you are as an employer, and that's what I always say. Like, you need to have a positive mindset and a positive attitude when it comes to this topic. And yeah, I think these are pretty much the key things that you need to take into consideration when going through this process.
And when you say going out there, what role does social media play in shaping and promoting your employer brand?
Yeah, super question. I mean, it's 2024. I think not communicate through social media is pretty important. I mean, of course, you can ignore all these channels, but for me, especially digital communication / social media plays a really, really vital role in communicating your employer brand. I mean, we talk about the job networks like LinkedIn and maybe Xing. We talk about other social media outlets, basically, where people are very happy to inform about their next career step. And I think this comes with a clear understanding of who actually is your target group. And what we very often hear in the last time is like, oh, do we need to go on TikTok now with our employer communication? And we're like, it depends. If you're looking for people that just left university and that are freshly starting into their job life, then for sure. But if you're looking for mid-aged sales specialists, then maybe it's not the right channel for you. So, but this always comes very close. I find like that what we experience, pretty often companies do actually not know what's their target group. Like, and I really don't like personas and stuff like that in marketing, because I don't want to know what Anne 31 is doing in her free time, that she goes cycling on a regular base, but I want to know where N31, the IT specialist, gets information about her next job step or her next career step, basically. And I mean, this is the information I need. And if I have this information, then I also kind of derive, or I'm able to derive, what is the proper channel or what is the proper social network where we should communicate in. Yeah. And also, I mean, one last sentence about this, like, very often then companies think like, cool, come on, let's take 5 social media channels and then we are present there. No, because, it's not that easy. I mean, I don't have to tell you, but it's not that you record one video and you can use it for all platforms, because here it already starts. Like, the formats are different, the cuts are different. TikTok works completely different than Instagram. Instagram works completely different than YouTube. So just take as many channels as you are able to handle, but also be there where your talent basically is.
And that's actually very interesting, because what we then did, we obviously focus in recruiting, we focus on developers, on tech people. And then we went to Gamescom, like where it's all about gaming, computer games. And so many colleagues asked us, what are you doing at Gamescom? What are we doing as a company at Gamescom? So that's very, very interesting.
Yeah,
so
it
you
makes sense,
really need to look at your target group and really understand where are they? Where can I approach them?
And I mean, to maybe give another nerdy tip, but again, marketing, AIDA. Action, interest, desire, attention, interest, desire, action. Yeah, now I have it. And you can perfectly use this for recruiting as well. So we did a project 2 years ago for a federal bank, a German federal bank, and they first of all had no clue who they actually want to reach out to, but they also never thought about for instance, AIDA. So what we did is that we found out all the communication they do as an employer is inform. They do not attract, like, hey, we're a good employer. And they also do not have a call to action, which means, hey, if you like us, then please apply. But they inform. So you can also use AIDA, for instance, when it comes to attracting people, not only customers. And if you have a look at this and then compare all the communication channels, also including social and so on, and see what reaction do you provoke in your target group, then this can be also really useful for the employer communication, I think.
Interesting. So you also talked a little bit about measure your employer branding efforts. What are some KPIs that you can measure? What would you recommend?
Peter Drucker, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. How was it? As I mentioned before, like, I think it doesn't make sense to come up with 25 KPIs, but maybe to come up with 5 that are also really useful. So now you can ask, what are the useful ones? Now the answer can be, it depends. No, but to come to the point, I think, first of all, what's really important is, like, what's your cost of vacancy? Like, how much does it cost us in average to fill a seat again? Second thing is time to hire. Like, what's the time frame from this position is available up to this position is filled? I find this also really, really important.
That's actually one we use, and that has improved
absolutely.
dramatically.
Yeah. And then there's one that's kind of trendy right now. Also, it comes from marketing again. Net Promoter Score. Like, how many people would say, I recommend fulfillment tool as a product, or your products actually. But you can also take this for your employees, which then is the ENPS, as I also learned just recently. So the employee Net Promoter Score. How many of your staff would recommend your company as an employer, which is a super important thing, I find. Because if there's like 25% recommending you, can be not such a good sign, basically. And then what else do we have? Maybe the number of initiative, is it called like that in English? Initiative, like applications without applying on a certain job, but just saying, hey, I want to work for your company. This can also be a good indicator about how attractive are you to the people out there. So there's a whole bunch of KPIs. I think we came up with a list a while ago, which is like 25 KPIs, but please do not use all of them because then you freak out. And it's also kind of hard to put them all together in one place, for instance, if there's no interfaces and stuff, but it's a different story.
What about portals like Glassdoor, Kununu? What do you think about them?
So there's one topic that sometimes I'm also allowed to do some speakings, and I just did this one. How do employers reach the young generations? And I just talked about it 3 weeks ago in Stuttgart at an event, and the room was set up for like 40 people, and I think there were like 150 people. So this is a huge topic for companies right now. How do we reach the younger generations? And there's one thing that keeps, or how to say, that characterizes these younger generations basically, and it's this whole topic of communities and influencers. So especially the younger generations, they want to trust the opinions made by other people in a similar setting. So what I want to say is, I think that platforms like Glassdoor and Kununu, they are not only very important right now, I'm pretty sure they will be even more important in the future when it comes to recruiting. Because, and this is what we talked about at the very beginning, this authenticity. Like, I can come up with a glossy, perfectly looking paper and give it to you, and it looks super shiny, and it looks like, wow, this is a crazy good employer, basically. But actually, what's more important is how are your reviews on Glassdoor and on Kununu. And I mean, I know the discussion as well, because Kununu used to be a product of the company that I worked for before. And then it always like, these are only the people that want to complain, and these are only the negative reviews and so on. This is not true. This is like around 60% of the reviews, at least what I know about Kununu, are positive actually. And I do this test sometimes before my speakings, and then I ask the audience, like, how many of you were already asked about certain reviews that people encountered on Kununu? And at the beginning, it's like maybe 5%. Now we are up to 50%. Usually it's half of the room that was already asked, hey, I saw that Kununu review of yours. What happened here? So people read it. People want to know more. And especially coming back to your question about social media as well, people are checking every source of information that they can find online. And it's not only your career section, but it's also these review platforms like Kununu and Glassdoor. So it's, to make a long answer short, super, super important to keep an eye on this, because people will check it out, very likely.
Yes, very interesting. Are there specific industries or certain types of companies that benefit most from investing into employer branding?
So it's a really good question. Actually, it's interesting when I introduce our company, then I say, we have this logo overview, and I always feel bad because I don't like this bragging. But I always say, we don't show this to you to show you how amazing we are, but we show this to you that pretty much every industry, every size of company is kind of going through this topic, working through this topic. So I'm not sure if there are particular areas where this makes more sense or less sense, but I think pretty much for all the companies that are looking for the special directions, like you just mentioned programming, IT, sales is actually a pretty tough thing right now, but also a lot of blue collar jobs are, because we always talk about the lack of skilled workers. No, I think we should talk about the lack of workers in general, basically. But so is there a difference between fields? No, I would say it's pretty much important for every niche, every size, every company. And as mentioned, I always use you actually as an example. I always say we work for companies from 40 up to 100,000 employees. And of course, the dynamics are different and the motivators behind it are different. But actually, the story is equally important for all sizes of companies.
Interesting. So what are some emerging trends or best practices in employer branding? Does AI play a role?
Yeah, it's funny. I just published an article about this. Yeah, AI is a big thing. AI is a really, really big thing. But I just saw a discussion on LinkedIn a few days ago where the question was, is AI going to make employer branding easier in the future? Or is it going to replace the human factor in it? I don't think so. But I think AI will, because if we talk about AI, we basically talk about generative AI. And then we talk about, how can I create pictures? How can I create texts? How can I create even music nowadays, which is also kind of crazy thing. But I think AI will enable content creators, employer brand responsibles to be more creative, to come up with more ideas. But still, there will be a human factor in this. I think what's coming up, what's emerging right now is this whole topic of it sounds weird, but humanizing C-levels actually to make C-levels more approachable, like especially when we talk about these big firms, like when you see, I don't know, car producers and so on, like to kind of create a bigger, like to get nearer to understand companies more through certain kind of ambassadors. That's one trend. So to humanize the C-level, basically. And what other trends do we have? I think it's also nowadays pretty normal that you just do not do this, one message fits all. And now we come up with one positioning statement, and this fits for programmers, for marketeers, and for salespeople, and for blue collars as well. But to really derive individual messaging for the respective target groups as well. And maybe one last trend that we see right now is, just briefly talked about it, that employer brands and employer positionings also directly get localized into respective markets. I mean, we did a pretty crazy thing for a big customer of ours, which is in 27 countries. And then we kind of derived the cultural aspects for each and every country, which is extremely necessary, because I think I mentioned this before. Like what's attractive for a German employee isn't necessarily attractive for an Indian employee in India or in China or whatsoever. And this is super, super interesting to really, kind of localization of employer brands. This is a pretty cool thing right now. Yeah.
Cool. So as a final question, what advice would you give companies looking to improve their employer brand?
Just do it. Be patient. Be brave. Get ready that the picture that maybe you as a managing director, the picture that you have as a managing director, that it's not necessarily the picture that everybody else in the company has. So it's about also change of perspective, which you said you found it super refreshing actually and super interesting, which it actually is. And don't try to be perfect. I think this is also important. So take it easy, take smaller steps, and maybe do like kind of a reverse analysis first. So maybe you can kind of connect to your question, where can companies, also smaller companies, start? Think about, what are your most important communication channels? And I said it now 3-4 times. Of course, it's a career section. Of course, it's a job ad. That's very often the first touch point. Try not to sound too boring, and to really put the stuff in that differentiates you. And just start it. It's a very cool and very satisfying topic to work through. And again, the message that you send towards your staff, that now you're actively working on who are we, what are we good at, and what can we get better in. This is a super perfect topic, so just do it.
Perfect, Marcus. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for all the valuable insights. It was so much fun to talk about one of my hard topics once again, and really reflect on everything we did. So thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me. Take care.